What's the smoke signal for Hollywood?
Captain Barbossa, you start out, he's a little salty, but at the end, sweetie, he's a sweetheart. We haven't even talked about Will Smith. I don't know how priests feel about that, but I'd imagine that they generally don't fall in love with mermaids.
How old is the mermaid?
Welcome to Couchlock, the movie podcast. It's time to swab the deck, you mangy bilge rats. Here is kind of what we're dealing with right now, okay?
Okay.
The year is 2003.
Right.
At the movie theater, we've got things like Finding Nemo, Elf, The Matrix Reloaded. We've got the fucking Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Like,
Was that around the same time? That's crazy.
this is all 2003, okay?
Uh-huh.
And then, to top it all off, we get the introduction to one of the largest franchises of our time, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Yo,
I just got chills.
matey. I know,
just got
bro.
chills.
It's so like, I mean, we were both young kids at this time.
Yeah, it's crazy how many different age groups can be into it, because like, especially looking back now and looking at what live action Disney is putting out now, Pirates is so mature for Disney, you know what I mean? Like, and it's so good. It's brutal, and the character designs like border on horror. It's awesome. But yeah, I agree.
Dude.
As a kid, there was just something that drew me to it. There was the atmosphere is just, it's so unique, and it made pirates cool, like, for sure.
Right? Like it really just like took this genre by the fucking throat, and Jerry Bruckheimer was like, I own this. I make pirate movies, like nobody else. What other pirate franchise could even stand in the shadow of what Pirates of the Caribbean
I
was
mean, I
able to do?
can't even think of another pirate franchise.
And it's absolutely insane, because you can tell that especially in The Curse of the Black Pearl, that this was just a huge undertaking that was only going to be accomplished by people who like really truly cared about getting this movie made,
Yeah, they totally caught like lightning in a bottle with this first one.
Dude.
It's just so it's magic how good this movie turned out to be, and it is because of all of the love and care that put into it.
Yeah, I mean, we should talk about the guy kind of at the helm of the ship here. Ew. Should I say puns? Ew. Anyways, Gore, right? Gore Verbinski. So homeboy is our director, and he directed the first 3 movies. I feel like that's important because you can kind of like feel that, right?
You could tell, yeah. You could tell. The other 2 are just kind of like the ugly redheaded stepchild, you don't.
Hey, look, they've got some.
I wouldn't call it. Okay, they're not the
Well,
ugly.
They're
not the ugly redheaded stepchild. They're the handsome redheaded stepchild.
Oh my god. Well, at any rate, we came in strong with Gore Verbinski, just like delivering this giant epic, and I think that's why it kind of like took the world by storm the way it did.
And it was supposed to be just one movie.
I know, based off of a Disneyland ride. Like this was the first time that Disney adapted a ride to a movie, right? So,
well, I think they did it with like the Critter Bear Country thing, but apparently it was really bad. I mean, I never even saw it.
Well, and that was even kind of different. Like that was like the ride at Disneyland was like you sat down in a theater and animatronic bears sang
Right.
songs. The movie that came out from that was like would have been like a way loose adaptation
Yeah, for
of
sure.
what you experienced at Disneyland. Pirates of the Caribbean though is like very heavily influenced by the ride, and
Well, that's
the
kind
ride
of
has even gone back
interesting.
and updated to match the movie.
Yeah, well, and the ride is all about the atmosphere. Like that is the ride.
Oh yeah. I feel like the whole premise of pirates like coming and invading your town and like, pillaging and plundering is something so like fantasy to us that it captures like the same way Lord of the Rings like just captures your
Yeah.
imagination. Like Pirates just builds like a huge atmosphere. The world
Mhm.
is the stage.
With Curse of the Black Pearl, that first production is kind of sets the stage for what the productions after are kind of going to have to live up to in a way.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and it sets the bar really high. I mean, they brought in a bunch of different ships. They built a bunch of fake ships that they could blow up or shoot scenes in.
Yeah.
They brought in they didn't want to do like replica guns like the gun that Johnny Depp's character
Yeah.
Jack Sparrow carries. That's like a real true to the timepiece gun.
Gun,
And
yeah,
then
yeah, from the 1700s.
yeah, and then even all of like the extras pieces, those are refurbished. So like they were
Mhm.
trying really hard to like make this look a certain way. And also like it was just amazing how many people like you were saying came together to make that happen. Like this is I think it's hard for people to understand. Like this wasn't just like this one guy, Gore at the top being like, "Oh, I want all these things." Like these were
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of people, like collectively coming together on a similar vision, and that doesn't happen often. It's amazing that they pulled it off in this franchise as many times as they did. Honestly.
Yeah, well, so they filmed this at St. Vincent, and apparently they brought 400 people and rented out pretty much every hotel room there. And then several hundred people from neighboring islands and the island itself came to work with them as well.
Oh, they called them up on their conches. Like, hey, hey,
They
island.
sent them a smoke signal.
Help!
What's the
Timber
smoke
me timber.
signal? What's the smoke signal for Hollywood?
It's just a dollar sign that floats up into the air. And then a mouse head. It's a dollar sign and then a mouse
Yeah.
head.
And then Disney lawyers because they're coming to sue about the mouse head.
Oh god, yeah. Hey, well, they threw enough money at this thing to at least get that first initial reaction from people to like extra super positive, right? Because like this thing on Rotten Tomatoes is currently sitting at an 86% audience, 80% tomato meter. That's
Okay,
pretty
interesting.
generous for the Rotten Tomato community, I would
Yeah,
say.
I suppose so. Like, I don't know. It's like one of those movies that because that was before like Rotten Tomatoes and all that stuff. So it is interesting kind of
Mm-hmm.
looking back at that and seeing what that score is now. Because to me, that's like a
Right.
9. That's a 9 out of 10 movie for sure.
Oh, I'd agree with you completely. And I think really what it is because like, you're right. Like Rotten Tomatoes wasn't really a thing back then. So like these are all reviews people are giving to it like way later.
Yeah, hindsight is
It-
2020.
but I think what it reveals is for a lot of people, this movie is really like a childhood classic nowadays. Like
Yeah,
it's aged up enough where a lot of us look back at our childhoods and fondly think of watching this movie. And I think that's really cool for for these characters and for this story. And like you said, this lightning in a bottle moment, it's
hmm
a satisfying payoff for all of those people.
yeah. So apparently, I was kind of interested in this. Apparently, Jack Sparrow there was two different versions of him floating around when this movie was being written, and
Oh.
one of them was like the Han Solo man's man kind of guy, and the
Mm-hmm.
other version of Jack Sparrow was like the comedic, light-hearted, like the funny guy. And
Gotcha.
Johnny Depp pretty much came on set, and it is like it could be argued, you could say that he should deserve a writing credit for how much he put into Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, I read that Keith Richards, who ends up like playing his dad later
Oh
in the
yeah.
series, was like a huge influence on his
Mhm.
character. You can kind of like feel that in just like the general like swagger of him,
Yeah, I could
right?
see that for sure.
But also like with all of the improvisation that he did, like you're totally like that's yeah, you should get a writer's credit.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I thought was kind of cool is that he wore contacts, but like they
Mm.
were sunglasses contacts. Like they were sunglasses that he would just put over his
What?
eyes because he'd be filming in the sun and they would keep him from
What?
squinting. Yeah.
That is so cool. I want a pair of those.
I
That would be
know, me
great.
too.
A long car ride.
Oh, that'd be sick.
I wonder if they hurt though, because sometimes like those
Oh yeah,
contacts
those yeah.
are.
I'm
Ugh.
sure it's not the most comfortable. Yarg, subscribe so you can pay for me peg leg.
Well, like on the topic of Jack Sparrow and like specifically Jack Sparrow in this Curse of the Black Pearl era, right?
Mhm.
th- One, this did insane things for Johnny Depp's career, and that's crazy because he's played so many iconic characters well before he touched
Yeah,
Jack Sparrow. Yet this is the one that people have come to define his entire career under.
right.
Uh it it's kind of cool because I can't think of a whole lot of other times in for our generation at least where we've experienced those like holy shit earth changing performances, and Johnny Depp like absolutely gave
That's
us
a
one in this
that's a
movie.
very good point. Yeah, like I can't really think of another in our lifetime other than that that just like shook the earth to its core.
I do wonder though, like how much of that was like a trade off between like the writers and the character creator versus Johnny Depp contributing to the role, because as his character kind of progresses, and especially in the last two movies, I don't feel that same connection
Mhm.
to him that I feel in these first three movies. Um, and especially this first one.
Yeah, the first one is something else entirely. Like I feel like it's one of those things where you get to set and this person is doing this thing with what you've created, but you have to be able to recognize that they're doing something special and that you should probably
Yeah.
follow along with it and like collaborate with people because you could make something incredible and they did.
And it's interesting how as the franchise becomes bigger and bigger, they start investing more and more money into it. It almost kind of feels like those quirky nuances that Johnny Depp brings to the character became more scripted and
Mhm.
a little more like robotic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes you kind of wonder, well, what was happening in Curse of the Black Pearl, you know what I mean? Versus these other movies. I know that Johnny Depp and Gore have worked together a few other times because he Gore did Rango, and Johnny
Oh,
Depp
okay.
voiced Rango, and then they also did the Lone Ranger together. Which flopped. Rango was really good though.
Rango is so good.
Yeah. So like maybe they just had like this really good relationship. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, that could I mean, definitely, especially like the more money that they're putting into it, the more they're gonna micromanage it. Even the like
Mhm.
micromanaging the directors, like he's like the director always has people that they're answering to as well, and they've got to test to them. And the more money that's getting pumped into it, the more they're gonna kind of be putting their thumb down and saying like, no, we want more of this, more of this. This is safe. This is what we're gonna do, kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of suspect that's what's happening here just cuz like I was saying, you can really feel how much tighter
Hmm.
Johnny Depp's performances kind of are forced to be as the franchise moves forward. But in this first one, he's fantastic. Carries the weight of the movie on his shoulders. He could do it all on his own,
Hmm.
but I think also one of the biggest key components to why the first three movies of this franchise are so much better is because we also have this Elizabeth Swann, Will Turner,
Yeah.
and then Commodore Norrington, little like love triangle that forces these three individuals literally like across the oceans after
Yeah.
each
It's
other.
such a big kind of arc for all of them that it's great to watch play out, and it's not like, oh, they're fighting, now they're together, now they're fighting again, now they're together. It's like not like that. It's complex. There's a
No.
lot of gears turning.
It's almost like you've got like this Venn diagram, right? And like on one side you've got like Jack Sparrow and Captain Barbossa like fighting it out for the pearl, right?
Mhm.
And then like on this other side you've got the Commodore Norrington, Elizabeth Swann, Will Turner situation. But then like every now and then they intersect because now we've got like Barbossa after Will Turner, but he doesn't know that he's got Elizabeth. You know, like there's
Yeah.
all of these like little ways where their circles interlock in just the tastiest perfect way.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously opposite of all of them is Barbossa, played by Joffrey Rush. I just love how simple Barbossa is as a character, but so complex.
Yeah, and he's also one of the few characters that like shows up in every single movie.
Oh yeah.
One way
That's
or another
something
he
like
makes.
I get it, but his death was so impactful that I kind of wish they didn't. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it will, but that's also kind of like you're saying, like his character design in its actuality is like so simple at the start. Like he kind of represents like the fantasy pirate, right? Like he
Yeah.
kind of just like survives everything and has all of these scars and battle wounds and he's
He's
missing limbs and
all about the treasure, all about the thrill of the
he's
hunt.
exactly, like, he is your through and through yo-ho pirate.
Mhm.
And so I do like that he's got, like, this 9 lives kind of thing about him,
Yeah.
but, also, like you said, just like this you can almost guess what he's gonna do because of, like, how, you know, how he's playing just like that straight up pirate. You can almost guess what he's gonna do. But you're
Yeah.
okay with it because he's so
Yeah, for
fucking
sure.
entertaining.
Well,
Like
and
Joffrey Rush is just a great actor.
he's a great counterpart um to Jack Sparrow because Barbossa is the pirate's pirate. He's out to get the loot, but he's also his character in the first movie is he's trying to get back a sense of feeling. He wants to be able to feel the wind in his face, and he can't feel that because he's
Mhm.
dead and he's stuck in this eternal loop. Whereas Jack Sparrow, he doesn't really care about the treasure. He's in it for the adventure and the
Yeah.
camaraderie almost. You know what I
Right.
mean?
He kind of like flaunts his free spirit in front of
Yeah.
Barbossa.
Yeah, they play
Yeah.
a great opposite to each other.
Oh yeah, 100%. You've got Barbossa, the like the hardened captain who runs a tight
Yeah.
ship versus Jack, who's just kind of like literally like skipping through life, just stumbling along in a drunken stupor. Yeah, and they do contradict each other, but then in those moments where like they come together, you see like
Yeah.
their piratiness.
Their
Okay,
piracy. You see
their
their privates.
piracy. They're yeah, they're yeah, they're really cut from the same cloth there, you know?
But the reason I want that character to stay dead is because his death is so impactful, and that's because he was trying to feel something the entire movie, and then at the end he finally can, and he gets shot, and he says it feels cold, and he dies. And that's so ironic and impactful and beautifully written that it's like I wish they could have just let that rest because it was so good. But I mean, it still is, you know, it's still like you could still look at it in that self-contained thing, but
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, no, look, I hear what you're saying, man. I hear what you're saying, but I will that like end shot of Dead Man's chest when he comes down the stairs and he's so
oh
tell
yeah.
me what's become of my ship. That is one of the like
Damn, dude, that's a
best
good
theater
point.
moments ever. And like
That's
I
a
look,
good
I
point. I
respect what
did
you're
just get
saying,
chills, if I'm
bro.
being honest.
Like, come on.
Such a good point.
Like, I
I take
respect what
back
you're
everything
saying.
I just said. I take it back.
Look, I'll defend Joffrey. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you're totally right. Like that death scene of his in Curse of the Black Pearl is super powerful, and it is like one of those like best like aha moments of the film because of the way like the curse is lifted right as Jack pulls the
Yeah,
trigger on his last bullet.
right.
It was all very like serendipitous, whatever.
Yeah.
But I gotta disagree in the long run because he just brings so much value to this franchise. One of the smartest decisions I think they've made throughout is keeping his character involved in the story.
He is a
I-
great addition, and the actor is obviously so good that plays him. That
oh
yeah,
yes,
I could definitely understand that because he's not bad in any other movie that he's in. He's a great part of every single movie that he's in.
that's what I'm saying, man. Like
Yeah.
Captain Barbosa, you start out he's a little salty, but at the end, sweetie, he's a sweetheart. Gotta love
He's a
Captain
little
B.
salty at first. You just gotta let him soak out that salt a little bit.
We go dormant for a little while. Flash forward 2006, and we get Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. And this is really exciting because a few years have progressed. CGI has improved
Mhm.
immensely in just like this short little amount of time, and we get one of the most iconic characters in cinema history. And I know you love this character, Mike. You know exactly
Oh
what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
for sure. We're talking about Davy Jones himself.
Oh, you know it.
Well, what was amazing about Davy Jones was the CGI that went into him, and like these movies already have the crazy practical effects, and now like they invented a new style of CGI for this character, and it was made it
Yes.
so Bill Nighy was able to perform with the other actors on set rather than having to perform by himself on a soundstage. And it
And I
really
think
just adds
yeah.
so much depth to the character and that character's relationship to the other characters on screen.
Totally, especially when you're working alongside actors like Johnny Depp and Joffrey Rush. Like these are actors that you want to be able to like feed off of each
Mhm.
other. And so yeah, having the ability to be there on set, feeling all of that, like giving a better performance pays off. Uh some people did not like Dead Man's Chest though
What? I didn't know that.
because of a darker tonal shift. Yeah, it got a bunch of criticism for not having that same lighthearted adventure
Damn.
thrill
I know we
that
just
Curse of the Black
talked
Pearl
about
had.
how good the first one was, but I think Dead Man's Chest is my favorite.
Oh wow. Okay. I mean, I will respect that decision cuz it is a fantastic film,
It is
and
so good.
I feel like they absolutely raised the bar here from Curse of the Black Pearl. Like you
Mhm.
said, they like tacked on this extra like now we've got like crazy CGI going on.
Yeah, and
What
I
can
mean
we
all
do
the
with that?
insane practical effects came over, and then they mixed
Mhm.
crazy practical effects with digital effects like the huge kraken that tears down the
Yes,
boat. So
dude.
they exploded that boat with
Yeah.
explosives, but then they also filled two huge pipes with 30,000 pounds of cement and dropped them on the boat
Oh, to like
to
replicate the
replicate the kraken's arms, and then
boof.
the pipes were blue, so they just made it so the pipes were the big kraken arms, and
That's
that's the ship breaking like that is a practical effect.
that is crazy, dude. That is so sick. Yeah, it's like exactly what I'm talking about. Like this is why I think Dead Man's Chest is one of those times where it's like, yeah, a sequel outdid the
Hmm.
original, I think. Like, yeah, this is fantastic. Um we also get uh the elder Skarsgård. We get Stellan Skarsgård as Bootstrap Bill. So
Oh,
the
I didn't know
Will
he was a
Turner,
Skarsgård.
He's a Skarsgård, man. You can't tell. Oh my god. Yeah, so like we get this addition to Will Turner's backstory of his father, Bootstrap Bill, has actually been
Mm,
trapped on the Flying Dutchman under Davy Jones' control all
mhm.
this time. Um, and he kind of serves to be the cautionary tale of what could
Yeah.
happen if you become a pirate. Um, but then
I
we also
love
have like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I love his character beat, which like is kind of part of the whole thing that Will Turner is trying to learn, which is like you could be a good man and still be a pirate.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like what makes Will Turner like different from all the others, right?
Hmm.
Like, and maybe like what makes him worthy of Elizabeth Swan's love and all
Right.
of
Well, and
that, you
he was
know?
hating his dad pretty much the whole movie, but it's like no, he's even though he was a pirate, like yeah, you can be mad at him, but he was still a good man.
We've got like this fantastic new layer added with like the Bootstrap Bill Will Turner story, and that
Hmm.
plays out. And it's fun to see, you know, what happens with Will Turner in the sights of Davy Jones. But Davy Jones is not the only new addition of villainous foe. We also have Cutler Beckett. And he is kind of like posing this force of like the new world, right? And as time evolves, the world, as he describes it, becomes smaller and smaller, and there's no longer room for pirates.
Mm.
And he's kind of like this idea of like government influence, you know?
Yeah, so I watched this amazing breakdown video that talked about this, and it talked about how Barbossa is Jack Sparrow's opposite, and
Mhm.
Davy Jones is Will Turner's opposite, and then we have Cutler Beckett, who is Elizabeth Swan's opposite.
Oh, that is so true. And it kind of sets up the third movie of this trilogy really well, too, because we kind of see like all three of those people like kind of stand off with each other at the
Hmm.
end. But yeah, to have that established in Dead Man's Chest is quite the big undertaking. And we end up going to a bunch of different, a bunch of different sets and experience all like a whole slew of new characters in Dead Man's Chest.
Well,
I
and
think,
the character design to Davy Jones's crew is like that's where I was thinking like this is like a horror movie almost, and how they sort of like grow and they get like waterlogged into the ship. It's so incredible, and there's
oh
just so much
yeah.
love and care went into those characters and went into the sets. You could feel the same magic from the second to or from the first to the second for sure.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like the whole Flying Dutchman crew is just, it feels like each one of them has like their own backstory you could dive into, and there would be
Hmm.
something exciting there to see. Um, I read that Tim Burton actually helped design a few
Oh, that's
of
sick.
the Flying Dutchman crew. That would be like, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, but it's so cool that, like, when you say, like, you think of in your mind, you're like, "Okay, a pirate demigod that is cursed to the depths of the ocean," like, what do you think of?
Mhm.
And they just like, brought it to life perfectly.
So perfectly, even down to like the ship design, like
Mhm.
all of it, the way the organs kind of like bellow out throughout the entire ship, and like it's all decrepit, and
Yeah.
it kind of has like this, it's like a character in itself.
Well, yeah, and you already know that this crew got real good at building ships by the time this 3rd movie rolled around too.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. They're not messing around at that point. Yeah, we've
No.
blown so many up, we've rebuilt them.
It's so crazy because like they built 3 ships for the first one alone. 2 of them they were able to actually float, and then like they just keep building more and more ships for each movie. It's insane.
Oh yeah, well, and the budgets have just like
Mhm.
balloon with every new installment. It's
Right.
kind of crazy. I mean, it's the cardinal rule of Hollywood, though. If your movie makes money, find a way to make a sequel.
Right. Yeah,
So
for sure.
throw more at it. Um, I it cannot go without mentioning the final act of Dead Man's Chest is some of the best Pirates of the Caribbean we get in the entire franchise,
Mhm.
right? So, well, it just sets up so many problems for them to solve in the next movie, like, so quickly.
Totally.
So, first of all, you were talking about the Kraken earlier. We finally get to see it in all of its glory, right? As it
Yeah.
consumes Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, it's teased throughout the whole entire movie and, like, you just in your mind, you're, like, thinking of it and you're like, "Oh, it's gonna be huge, it's gonna be crazy," and then you finally see it and it's just as massive and just as insane as you want it to be.
Oh, and it's so gross. It's like
Yeah.
mucusy saliva is just like flopping
Uh-huh.
everywhere, right? Um, Also, to kind of add another layer of intricacy, he's not just like eaten by the kraken. He is sacrificed by
Yeah,
by
that's
Elizabeth
very true.
Swan.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she
And
handcuffs him to that shit.
she tricks him into being handcuffed to the post by kissing him. And that poses an issue because, of course, Will Turner is going to watch that. Of course, he's going to be
Yeah. Yeah,
watching.
he's not happy about that.
And now he's very confused. He's a
Mhm.
young man full of emotion, and now he's confused. I- It's it's all just weaving a very tangled
Yeah,
web.
it's like, "We're not done with this. We're going somewhere." Just like, you're not like, you just gotta stick around and wait because we gotta wrap this movie up right now.
Exactly, like, and don't you worry because it takes only but 1 year this time,
Yep.
2007, and we get, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, the conclusion to this epic trilogy.
Yeah, and at World's End, especially with the big, massive set pieces, you could tell this series is sort of coming to a head as far as how much crazy money this is bringing in because you have
Mhm.
this huge battle of the Black Pearl versus the Flying Dutchman, and it's like one of the most massive sound stages that was ever recorded on with like 920 feet of blue screen and a
Oh my
huge
god.
animatronic ship that they were able to rotate and a water system that would dump 50,000 gallons of water per minute. It was it was nuts and all on a blue screen that they then had to go in and do some fucking crazy CGI
Oh
magic
my
to it.
god. Could you imagine if they were working with the stagecraft situation that Star
Oh,
Wars is
dude,
using?
that would be
That would be
fucking nuts.
insane, right? Because a scene like that final epic battle in the Maelstrom is iconic, bro. Like
Mhm.
it is so cool looking and so much happens. This massive conclusion. And that's the very end of the movie, bro. Like so much
Yeah,
happens
that's so true.
before that. Um I I mean to kick things off, like we meet back up with Elizabeth Swan and Will Turner, and now they've reached out to the Pirate King of
Mhm.
Singapore, and that's where they are, and it's just this incredible set, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. All the all of the things that made the first 2 incredible, there it's like all carrying over and it's like compositing into this bigger and bigger glom of like crazy movie shit, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like Gore Verbinski was like, I was just warming up. Let me show you how I've honed my craft now. Cause yeah, At World's End is definitely the best looking Pirates movie.
Yeah.
Uh and I also I think this one's my favorite. I
Oh,
love that
really?
I love that we start the movie with all of these problems, like these impossible feats. You're kind of
Yeah.
feeling like how do these characters find resolution in any of this, right? But somehow by the end of the film, they've done all of that in a way that's satisfying and you feel okay letting them go for now, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Since we're talking about the greatest of Pirates of the Caribbean, I was gonna bring it up earlier, but I forgot. I have to bring up Hans Zimmer.
Oh, yeah, it's never too late to bring up Hans Zimmer, you know?
Well, like this is one of the I mean, he has so many famous soundtracks, but the soundtrack of Pirates of the Caribbean is massive.
Dude.
Everybody knows this soundtrack. It makes you think when you think of pirates aside from these movies, you think of this soundtrack.
And it kind of makes you feel unstoppable. Like you kind of hear it and you feel like a pirate all of a sudden, you
Oh
know?
yeah,
You're like,
100%. The way that he like the way that Hans Zimmer dives into each character and gives them their own themes and like
mhm.
he like brings out the cheekiness of Jack Sparrow and like the little moment to moment detail, but then you get into that huge action crescendo and like the big motif that everyone knows. Like it feels so
Yes.
incredible.
It adds to the atmosphere like you were talking about earlier just tenfold. And I feel like in a lot of ways, like I don't say this lightly, man. I put him up there with the likes of John Williams. Like
Oh
this is
yeah,
such an
for sure.
iconic score.
Like
Uh
you could put this soundtrack and Indiana Jones next to each other, I think.
Oh, yeah, you could do that with the Harry Potter soundtrack in this one.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
True, true.
so many, like, this is just one of those soundtracks that you can just start to hum, and no matter who you're with, they could start humming
Yeah.
along with you,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like,
excellent. It's not often that a composer breaks through the noise like that, but he really did with this soundtrack.
and I know that, his name is the one that ends up in the credits, but it was not just him. It took
Right.
a lot of different composers that all, worked underneath him and together with him to create this.
Oh yeah, he has a
And
massive team and a massive studio like with I mean amazing players that he records with that I'm sure have their own personal flair. Like each violinist that played that main theme has their own flair on it.
oh, 100%. And I just think that's so cool how like uh, you know all of these different composers can kind of just add a little
Mhm.
touch to a movie, and yet you step away and everything sounds so perfect and balanced and
Right.
just belongs. um you can tell in a movie when that's not the case. You can feel it.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true here. You can feel that it is just exactly
It
how it
just
should be.
yeah, 100%. It's so intentional.
All right, Hans Zimmer fangirling complete.
Complete. Had to get that out of the way.
It might not be the only time. We might
No, I'm sure we'll circle back.
we'll come back to that. Well, yeah. So at World's End, um, there's a couple things, right? Um, Captain Barbossa, he's back. He wants his ship. Captain Jack has it in Davy Jones' locker.
There's a reason that this is one of the best looking. It's because even today it's still one of the most expensive movies ever made at $300 million.
Holy shit. Well, apparently it costs a lot to vacation in Davy Jones' locker. The whole opening sequence of them having to go rescue Jack Sparrow and the Black Pearl from Davy Jones' locker is awesome. Like I love the whole like trying to figure out this like circular map. Like that's
Mm,
intriguing to watch. And then they go through all of these different like really ethereal feeling like uh areas like they like sail into this cave, and then on the inside of this cave it looks all like stargazy and
oh
like
yeah.
it's really pretty. Really gnarly looking. um Elizabeth Swann discovers that her dad is dead, She sees him
Oh, that's right.
passing on, his soul is passing
Yeah,
on. Um, they go over that waterfall.
the waterfall. Oh yeah. I remember that shot very, very particularly.
Yeah, they go over the waterfall is really
Yeah,
crazy. They're all hanging
the
on.
sense of scale in At World's End. I mean, all of the movies have a great sense of scale, but At World's End really has a massive sense of scale, especially with that, like the waterfall scene and the
Hmm.
Black Pearl versus Flying Dutchman scene at the very end there.
So many, even like when they finally find Captain Jack in like with the Black Pearl, and he's like down on the sand instead of up in the ship. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like even seeing that perspective is
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Like,
Yeah, that's
oh
very true.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like the shot of him sailing it on the sand in like the sand
Oh
waves.
yeah.
That's so wicked. Like it's just like a crazy visual trip.
Yeah, that one is definitely the most trippy for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And then like we get onto the other side of like, okay, we've rescued Captain Jack, and they go through that sequence of figuring out how do we get back to our normal land, and they do like that the green the green star, what's up is down, what's down is
Oh
up, and then
yeah.
they rotate the ship. They like
Oh yeah, I think they did that practically too. I think they did that with the miniature, but they did
what?
that practically.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once we get onto like the other side of that part of the story here, it's like action all the way
Mhm.
till the end. They just start like tying up little loose ends.
Yeah, here and
Um
there.
yeah, yeah. Um we re-meet Commodore Norrington. He's had a little bit of a rough go of things, but has regained a bit of his pride by the end of the series. Of course, he dies, so
So it's all for naught.
bummer. Bummer for him. At least he redeemed himself. At least he didn't die a fucking pussy.
It's all you could hope for.
Actually, there's something kind of cool there. So in Curse of the Black Pearl, Will Turner is the blacksmith that crafts the
Oh
sword
yeah.
he's gifted, right? So that's the sword that he attempts to uh fight Davy Jones with, but Davy Jones just kind of like knocks it to the side, and one of his pirate hoodlums picks it up.
Oh huh.
It reappears in that final fight scene
Oh.
where Will Turner then gets stabbed in the chest with it, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
Long story short, Will Turner's heart replaces Davy
Oh yeah.
Jones.
Yeah.
He becomes the new, he becomes the new captain of the Flying Dutchman. Well, once he's the captain of the Flying Dutchman, now he carries that sword on his side. So that sword, in a weird way, kind
Oh
of
wow.
comes back to him. Like,
Interesting.
oh, that's an interesting little detail from the very first movie all the way through.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Um. Anyways, R.I.P. Commodore Norrington. Didn't get the girl. Didn't get the glory. Became like a pseudo pirate for a little while.
You did a lot. You didn't really do any of them all that great, but
Oh.
um one of the things to mention too is that all of these movies put the actors through the craziest shit. Like all of them do the craziest shit.
There's a bunch of
But
crazy stunts.
yeah, for this one in particular, Joffrey Rush Barbosa said that during the end when they had that rain machine that dumped 50,000 gallons of water per minute, that was like the last 10 weeks of shooting. And he said when his costume was soaking wet, he weighed 45 pounds extra.
No. Oh my god.
And he had
That
to do that
sucks.
for 10 weeks straight all day long.
Grueling. Hey, you get ripped, I bet, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's great, dude. How many gallons? 50,000
50,000
gallons?
gallons per minute.
I feel like I can't even really understand how much water that is. Like until you're
Yeah,
getting
you'd
like
have to see it.
smacked in the face with 50,000 gallons of water.
Fucking 8 hours a day.
Dude, that sucks. Well, At World's End, I think really ended up being just the perfect way to leave off with most of our main cast, right?
Hmm.
So, like we said, they fight it out in the end. Davy Jones, Captain Barbossa, Captain Jack, everybody's fate is kind of up in the air, and where will they all land? Well, very close to where we began, actually. uh, Will Turner ends up on board the Flying Dutchman with his dad. He's captain now and cursed to live a life at sea away from the woman he loves, except for once every 10 years, Elizabeth
Yep.
Swan. Can't have the girl ever. Jack Sparrow, he wins back the Black Pearl. Woohoo!
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Captain
Well, and
Barbossa
Barbosa gets his ship back too.
gets a ship of his own. We're all happy, hunky dory, sailing off into the sunset. Mostly, Elizabeth gets to stay at home because she's a woman.
And that's what women did back then.
Uh, that is kind of, in my opinion, like a bookend in
Hmm.
part of this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell as far as these other movies go that was, that there was so much love put into it, into that trilogy. I guess we could call it a trilogy because it really is. It's that director's trilogy.
Yeah, we saw this trilogy through with one director, Gore Verbinski, and now at the end of this story, where do we go? I think what they decided from like a production standpoint is that this franchise could live on through the eyes of Jack Sparrow and his adventures.
Hmm.
So moving forward, we jump into On Stranger Tides, which came out in
Well,
2011.
and it's interesting too because immediately, like, without even hearing the story, you could tell that this is a more like corporatized version of these movies because there was 10 different VFX companies working on the film at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. And it's so interesting because we were kind of like commending Curse of the Black Pearl for how many people worked on it and like it came together in a
Hmm.
unified vision. I feel like it these last two movies fall apart because of that. They feel jumbled. They don't have
Yeah.
like a clear like reason of why they're being made. There's really
Hmm.
no like in-depth story. Um, it's kind of just like these standalone throwaway adventures of Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, and a lot of the magic that was so present in the first three movies, like some of it like is comes along. Like I think at least visually, some of the like I think it's at I think it's at the end of Dead Men Tell No Tale when they're fighting at the bottom of the ocean, but the ocean's split in
Mm.
two. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
visually really pretty, but the context is just not there. The characters aren't there. The story really isn't there. And I don't know, it's just the magic is gone pretty much entirely.
Yeah, I think it's just like we had such an ensemble cast in the first three movies, and Johnny Depp does a fantastic job as Jack Sparrow, and he carries these two movies wholeheartedly.
Oh,
He
and I
is
mean
the
Penelope
entertainment.
Cruz.
Oh. Well, like, let's get into that though, because they introduce this other storyline of once upon a time Jack Sparrow was in
Mhm.
love with Blackbeard's daughter, right?
Right.
And so now we've got like a little bit of like a love interest thing happening there, but she also reveals that Blackbeard has been uh what's the word I'm looking for? Um But we also learn that Blackbeard has come to find this premonition of him dying. So he's
Mhm.
desperate for the Fountain of Youth. And Penelope Cruz's character, being his daughter, also wants him to live.
Right.
So Jack Sparrow's kind of like pulled along on this adventure. But I think that's also like part of the problem is like it doesn't really make sense. Like, why now?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, and that doesn't feel like Jack Sparrow's adventure. It feels like an adventure he's
Yeah.
having for someone else.
It feels like a lot of really convenient decisions to
Yeah.
to make another movie.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
and it's and it's particularly disappointing because they take some time to like set up some really cool things with like I like how they introduce the mermaid and I like how they
Mm.
bring along this priest who's now questioning like he's having like this moral dilemma the whole time.
Mhm.
Like this good versus bad, pirate versus priest kind of thing going on, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And even like falls in love with the mermaid, which I don't know how priests feel about that, but I'd imagine that they generally don't fall in love with mermaids
How old
often.
is the mermaid?
It's just like they take the time to try to like build that atmosphere again
Yeah.
like they did before, but then they drop it completely, let it go completely, and we move on to a whole new story
Yeah.
in the next chapter of this
Yeah,
franchise.
there are definitely crumbs of that inspiration. Like I think the introduction to the mermaids, if I'm remembering it right, is fucking dope.
Oh,
Like it's like the crew on a small like dinghy, right? And she comes and grabs
uh-huh.
his wrist and pulls him under.
Yeah, they're like cuz they're after the mermaid tears, so they
Oh,
send a
yes.
few of the crew out on a little dinghy and tell them to sing to attract the
Right.
mermaids in, but mermaids in this world are vicious as
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciated that, and I thought like that concept was really cool. But you're right, the story that follows it like just does not live up to the, I guess, ideas behind the story.
Yeah, they build up all this atmosphere in On Stranger Tides. They leave it open where they could continue that storyline further with because Priest dude is in love with the mermaid, right?
Hmm.
But nope, that's it. That's moving on. That's all we get of those characters. So
Yeah, yeah, it's
I
very
and
strange.
maybe it was like the production company's desperate attempt to turn things around because On Stranger Tides got a stinky 33%
Oh shit!
on the tomato meter. Yeah, this was bad. It was a
Wow,
slaughter.
what did Dead Men Tell No Tales get?
Dead Men Tell No Tales got a 30, so
Wow,
it's
and
gonna
what
get
did
a
At
little bit
World's End
worse.
get?
At World's End got a 44.
That's so interesting that those were scored so low because like even watching them now, I mean, I guess we just spent so long talking about it, but they're so good. But yeah, the last two were just I could understand that for sure.
Well, and like the thing about like At World's End and even Dead Man's Chest is like critics scored it low, but audiences still really liked those
Right.
movies. We break into On Stranger Tides and it's like across the board audiences rated it super low at 54% as
I
well.
see.
So
Okay.
it kind of became like this communal decision that
Mhm.
this wasn't what we wanted to see out of the Pirates of the Caribbean world.
Right.
Um, so maybe that's why they just like ditched all of those characters immediately
Yeah.
and decided to tell a different story. Also, the director for this one, Rob Marshall, he's just kind of like the king of sloppy like sequels. Like he did the
Oh,
Mary
really?
Poppins Returns movie.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah, and then he did like that more modern retelling of Into the Woods, like the movie
Oh, yeah,
retelling
yeah.
of Into the Woods. So it's kind of like he just kind of has like I don't know, not the
I'm
best
sure
track record.
like I'm sure Disney calls him with a script and they're like, "Hey, make this." And he's like, "Oh, money? Okay."
Okay,
Like
yeah,
I don't blame him.
like I'll do something cool with a big budget, but it didn't really make sense, and people felt
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, but that didn't stop them from making another one.
They're like, "Hey, as long as we have cool shots to tease this movie with, I think we're going to make a fuck ton of money."
Which in my opinion, even though it got a lower critic rating, audiences decided this was a little better at 60%, and I agree with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last installment of the franchise here came out in 2017, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Right.
Um, it was like a noble attempt at redemption, and it definitely had some moments that were cool. Like I I like the whole like flashback of Captain Jack being younger and like learning about
Oh
how
yeah.
like he like got the compass, like got the black pearl. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then like also like kind of served like this secondary purpose of telling us Captain Salazar's origin story, like why he hates Jack Sparrow so much.
Yeah.
And it literally would go to the bottoms of the ocean to fight him. Uh,
Yeah, literally.
uh, but at the same time, it was just another kind of like disconnected. Why are we doing this? Uh,
Mhm.
Captain Jack felt like not himself most of the time, and just like not very like he didn't have his swagger, so he wasn't as entertaining. It was like a
Yeah,
deflated balloon.
100%. Like, I mean, we talked about it in the beginning. He was more stiff throughout these last ones. He didn't have as much. Sure, they didn't have as much creative freedom as they did.
Yeah, 100%. And like just like character choices that I don't know would necessarily have happened earlier on. Like I don't believe that Captain Jack would just give away his compass for a drink. Like I
Yeah.
don't like that doesn't make sense to me.
No, I told it he would like find a way to just steal the drink. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, like he's a fucking pirate and he's Captain Jack Sparrow. Like
Yeah.
he, he's just going to give away his magic compass like that.
Yeah. I don't. I totally agree. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess we're here now. We have another movie rumored. What would you want that, and what would you want from it? Because the last movie leads off with a hell of a cliffhanger of a potential return of Davy Jones.
Oh, that's right. Oh man. Oh, I'm just now remembering so much. I feel like we need to talk more about Dead Man Tells No Tale. Because do you remember about the? We haven't even talked about uh Will Smith. Will Smith. We haven't even talked about Will Smith. No, we haven't even talked about the fact that Will Turner comes back in Dead Man Tells No Tale.
Yeah, his curse gets broken.
Yeah, and it also kind of gives us this new character in his son Henry, who
Yeah,
is kind of like out there trying to find this trident to break the curse.
right.
Um and
Oh
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense that Davy Jones would be back then.
right, because the Flying Dutchman has to have a captain.
Yeah, I don't know. That would make sense with him being back, and I I'm hesitant because the way reboots and remakes are happening now, it is just not. Don't just let it lie, let it be. You know, you already kind
Mhm.
of did a couple things at the end there we didn't really like. Don't make another one. Um, but like I don't know, I could see if there was a team that was really inspired by the first 3 and really wanted to make something special and Disney was
Yeah.
down to let them do that, then I couldn't say no.
I've heard that one of the directors from Dead Man Tells No Tales, Joachim Roning, he's rumored to be tied to this new one.
Mhm.
So it would kind of make sense if they decided to, further that cliffhanger in another movie. And we
Right.
had like a return of the Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann. I guess now with the addition of Henry, their kid.
Yeah.
But you're right, bro. Like the reboot thing, I almost wish that they would like maybe just like leave Will and Elizabeth at home and let Henry go off on an adventure and just focus more on on building really good characters to
Yeah.
tell a new story.
It's even
Let's
like, fuck it, like, make another story set in that same universe, but separate from all the characters, you know? Like, it doesn't have to be you could
Yeah.
people like audiences get that now. You could do that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think that they've established enough times that there are many places in this world we've yet to see and
Yeah.
many characters that we have yet to meet.
Many curses
That
and monsters we haven't heard of or seen.
exactly like uh we just have to be brave enough to try to tell a new story.
Mhm.
Um and I think that's really the kicker here is we're talking a big budget production. Are they brave enough to break away from the mold of what they know will sell a ticket to tell a
Right.
new story? I think it's worth the risk, personally.
I do too, but if they will do it or not, that is to be seen.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath the way things have been going, honestly.
No. No, neither am I.